He was considered as the weakest soldier, but after almost dying in a monster attack, he swallows an alien parasite that grants him the ability to transform into the strongest monster. The story begins in a world overrun by terrifying creatures known as kaiju. While the surveillance team stays caught up in their tasks, a brand new ugly kaiju suddenly emerges, throwing the city into chaos. As emergency alarms blare across every corner, warning citizens to rush to the nearest shelter. The investigation team quickly sends word to the base that the latest target is making its way from Yadobasho to Yamashita town and seems to measure about 60 meters in length with a fortitude level of 3.6. As the reptilian kaiju storms through the city, the defense force gears up for battle, and this time it's the 3rd Division that gets called into action. Mina Ashiro, the commander of the 3rd Division, leads the charge and dives straight from a helicopter and engages the lizard-like beast in combat. Her team follows right behind to back her up, and without wasting a second, she fires a shot that takes the creature down in one clean hit. The kaiju's bodily fluids explode on impact and splatter everywhere, turning the whole area into a disgusting mess. Once the defense force finishes off the monster, it's time for someone to deal with the aftermath. That's when our middle-aged protagonist, Kafka Hibino, shows up munching on a burger while peering through a telescope at the filthy slum he and his team are about to scrub clean. On one side are the celebrated heroes who get showered with cheers and admiration, while on the other are these cleanup workers who don't get so much as a nod of respect. Still, Kafka sees this as his own kind of battle against the kaiju and takes a strange sense of pride in doing it. He sends a sample of the creature to the tech unit before getting back to his gross but necessary job. But one of the guys gets a little too careless and a piece of the monster explodes, causing a superficial injury to a rookie. The head of the cleanup crew then turns to Kafka and orders him to switch over to the intestines section since they're short on manpower over there. Kafka clearly finds the idea disgusting and grumbles about it, but the moment he steps in, it's obvious the guy's a total pro when it comes to handling stomach-churning work like that. Later that day, as Kafka makes it back home, he drops straight onto his bed without a second thought. The nasty chore he was stuck with leaves him feeling nauseous, and while trying to distract himself, he turns to the TV where Mina is being praised as a national hero by the media. The sight of her pulls him back to a time when he stood beside her, making bold promises that the two of them would wipe out every last kaiju together. Lighting up a cigarette, he sits there soaking in the bitterness of those dreams that never quite made it. Eventually, he switches off the TV and lets out a frustrated yell. But after a second, he pulls himself together and tries to convince himself that even cleaning up the mess is an important job. The next day, Kafka hops onto his scooter and rides off to work with his head pounding like crazy. Once he arrives, he meets up with his co-workers and gets introduced to a fresh recruit named Rino Ichikawa. The guy named Takuta mentions to Rino that Kafka once had the same dream of joining the defense force but ended up giving up on it. Rino cursorily looks at Kafka and asks with a serious tone why he threw in the towel. Kafka then shares how hard he pushed himself for that goal, until the harsh truth hit him that his abilities had limits, and says Rino will probably understand that too once he gets older. But Rino isn't having it, refusing to accept what he calls a lame excuse, and firmly states that he'll never back down like that. He walks off to get changed while Kafka's left standing there, clearly annoyed by the kid's attitude. Later, as the duties get announced, Kafka feels a brief spark of excitement hearing that the newbie is being handed the gruesome intestine cleanup. But that excitement quickly fades the moment he finds out he's been stuck with the same disgusting job all over again. When they finally get a break from the grind, Kafka plops down next to Rino to eat, but the poor newbie looks completely grossed out and nauseous. When Kafka asks what's wrong, Rino admits he doesn't have much of an appetite. Without missing a beat, Kafka tosses a multivitamin bottle at him, saying that stuff is exactly what Rino needs if he wants to survive the day on the job. Then Kafka pulls out some nose plugs and chases after Rino, trying to shove them in while causing a big commotion. They keep working until dusk, and when their shift finally ends, Rino approaches Kafka. True to his usual upbeat self, Kafka strikes a boxer's stance and asks if Rino is here for revenge. Instead, Rino thanks him and mentions that the age limit for Defense Force recruitment has been raised to 33, which means there's still hope for someone like Kafka at 32. Rino points out that he saw Kafka's sadness when he talked about quitting. Just as Rino turns to leave, Kafka smiles and thanks him, calling him a nice guy. Suddenly, a rogue kaiju appears and opens its massive mouth, aiming to swallow Rino whole in a single gulp. At the last second, Kafka lunges in, saving the boy but crashing hard in the process. He convinces Rino to run while he keeps the monster distracted, acting as a decoy. The monster chases him through a narrow street as he sprints, finally smashing through a glass window and leaping off a building. In that moment, Kafka recalls the time with Mina when they both lost everything to the Dan Kaiju. He tries to lift Mina's spirits by joking that all he really cared about was finishing some old Nintendo Pokémon games. Sitting together on a cliff overlooking their ruined homes, they shout in unison that they want to become Defense Force officers and turn it into a friendly rivalry to see who will become the coolest officer of all. Back in the present, Kafka mourns his failures while the monster keeps closing in on him. He grabs a rod and stands his ground, aiming to strike the kaiju's legs in an attempt to decapitate it, but the beast throws him aside with brutal force, leaving him groaning in pain. He struggles to get back on his feet, only for the monster to open its massive mouth wide again, nearly swallowing him whole. Just then, Reno saves the day by attacking the creature with a weapon he had brought along. Kafka yells at him, asking why he showed up, and Reno replies that he already notified the Defense Force and insists that he could never become a true officer if he just left a friend to die. These words echo Kafka's old dreams, giving him the strength to push himself up. Right as the monster prepares to finish off Reno, Kafka gathers all his courage and shouts, sounding like he's about to morph into a superhero or something. But before he can finish, a tiger suddenly leaps in and defeats the kaiju in a mere second. Mina appears behind the tiger, ordering everyone to take care of the injured. After being rescued, Kafka and Reno are taken to the hospital where they lie side by side, talking like old friends. Reno tells Kafka that if it weren't for him, he would have been dead already, praising how cool he is and insisting he should become a defense officer. Kafka punches himself on the head, scolding himself for having ignored his dream all along, and finally decides to give it another shot. But just as hope begins to rise, a flying bug-like kaiju appears before him. Kafka shouts as the monster announces it has found its target, and before he can react, the creature enters Kafka's mouth. He feels intense pain, and when Reno checks on him, what he finds is not Kafka, but a cool-looking humanoid kaiju. Both get in shock by what Kafka has become, yet Kafka tries to reassure Reno that he is still Kafka and not a kaiju. Before they can process what is happening, an old man arrives, shaking everyone up from head to toe, and quickly calls the Defense Force to report the appearance of a kaiju inside the hospital, even if it's the last thing he does before hitting the deathbed. The story flashes back to a time when Mina and Kafka sit side by side in the library, laughing over books before everything went wrong. Kafka nervously asks Mina not to tell his mom he reads manga, saying that if she finds out, the whole neighborhood will know in minutes. Mina smiles and thanks him for always being there. Back in the present, Mina's platoon gets tasked with taking down the small kaiju spotted at the hospital, so she orders everyone to gear up and move quickly to avoid casualties. The siren blares through Yokohama, warning the residents of the threat. One passerby hears the muffled alarm and grumbles about how the government still hasn't fixed the sound system. Back at the hospital, our duo and the old man are in full panic mode. Reno urges Kafka to flash a smile and convince the geezer it's all a mix-up or maybe just a Halloween costume. Kafka quickly follows through, but the creepy grin he makes is so terrifying that the old man faints on the spot. Kafka rushes over to check on him, and the moment his hand touches the wall, the whole thing along with the ceiling cracks up, scaring both Kafka and Reno even more. Kafka starts to worry that he really has turned into something dangerous. Just then, patients in the lobby catch sight of him. Kafka panics and thinks about jumping out the window to avoid causing more trouble, but the moment he touches the window with his kaiju hand, it crumbles completely. Reno bolts outside and Kafka tries to follow, but even a small jump sends him flying high into the air. The Defense Force gets the alert that the kaiju has escaped from Yokohama Hospital and is now making its way toward an already evacuated area. As Reno runs alongside him, he finds himself struggling to process the fact that his senior has somehow turned into a kaiju. When he glances back to ask if it's really still the same Kafka, he sees that things have taken an even weirder turn as Kafka now looks even more terrifying, with tentacles and other freaky extensions jutting out his body. Reno asks if this is some kind of special burst mode, but it's clear that Kafka himself has no clue what's going on. Right then, a worm-like projection suddenly shoots out from his mouth and swallows a bird alive, which leaves both of them absolutely horrified. Kafka somehow manages to shift back into his humanoid form, but the moment he settles down, he turns to Reno and says they've got a serious problem. Already overwhelmed with everything going on, Reno asks what now, only for Kafka to explain that he really needs to pee and there's no holding it anymore. Reno checks him over and quickly realizes that the usual equipment for peeing is nowhere to be found. And just like that, Kafka loses control and ends up releasing the liquid from a place that absolutely no normal human should pee from. Kafka drops to the ground in misery, trying to recover from the emotional damage, while Reno does his best to get him moving again. Our guy lies there, crushed over the thought that his dream is now officially over since there's no way he could ever join the Defense Force like this. That's when Reno notices a restricted zone nearby and begins pushing the barrier aside, figuring that it might be the perfect place for the two of them to hide. Kafka's ears suddenly ring as he grabs his head, claiming he can feel something moving underground. And in that moment, he realizes he's sensing a kaiju. At the same time, the surveillance team alerts the 3rd Division of the Defense Force, the same group that's hunting Kafka, and they quickly scatter into position. Kafka tells Reno that this kaiju feels like the one that attacked them before, and the two dash toward the restricted zone. Meanwhile, a little girl and her mother are attacked by another kaiju, and the mom ends up trapped under rubble as the creature lunges forward, jaws wide. Just before it strikes, Kafka crashes in and knocks the monster away with a solid punch, then starts making funny faces to calm the kid, though all he manages to do is terrify her even more. Reno shows up and together they move the mother to safety. Just then, the bad kaiju gets back up only to get obliterated when Kafka punches it with enough force to send it flying and explode in the air, making its bodily fluids come down like raindrops. Kafka kneels beside the scared girl and softly says he'll be gone soon and the defense force will handle the rest, but just as he turns to go, she thanks him, sparking a memory of Mina in his mind. Reno warns him to run before the disposal unit shows up, but Kafka stays rooted, staring forward before declaring he's done giving up, and as he says it, his kaiju head disintegrates, revealing his human face underneath. When Mina arrives at the scene, she feels confused by everything that just happened and approaches the little girl to try and get some information from her. The girl hesitates at first, but when Mina promises she will wipe out all the kaiju, the girl asks her to promise not to hurt the good kaiju who saved her mom. This unexpected request leaves Mina flabbergasted, and the so-called missing kaiju receives the code-named Kaiju Number 8, with a super ugly face chosen to represent it. 3 months pass, and Kafka becomes the first kaiju to ever escape the defense force, causing every officer to be on constant alert searching for him. The supervisor of the kaiju's mess cleaning facility hands 2 letters to Reno, saying they came from the defense force and asking him to give Kafka's letter to him as well. Reno checks his own results and finds he passed the first exam. He then takes the other letter to Kafka and on his way opens it, smiling when he sees Kafka pass, before running to share the news with his senior. Just as Reno arrives and delivers the good news, he suddenly gets angry and attacks Kafka when he sees him in his kaiju form. Apparently, Kafka still hasn't fully mastered shapeshifting and quickly realizes his mistake and tries to morph his face back, but forgets to hide the fangs. Reno explodes in his ears, telling him to be more careful since his kaiju form is famous all over the media. As the story rewinds, it reveals that after the incident, they rushed to the hospital and made up a story about running away when the kaiju showed up. Reno hoped they had fooled the defense force, but Kafka's kaiju form had spread across the media like wildfire, all thanks to the old geezer. Reno then hands Kafka a letter and finds out it's always the second round where Kafka fails. Reno asks him if he's ready to take the exam with his current body, warning that if he messes up, he might be killed on sight. Kafka stands with determination and says he cannot let the last 3 months of hard work go to waste, and considering he's already 32, this might be his very last chance to chase his dream. Reno tells him that even if Kafka fails, he won't quit and they'll take each other on as rivals. Kafka pulls out a water bottle but struggles to open it, so he tries harder and accidentally morphs back into a kaiju. Reno scolds him, telling him to skip the exam, but Kafka drops to his knees, arguing that he will manage until the exam time comes. 10 days pass in the blink of an eye, and finally it's time for the exam. Ardu parks their truck in a huge parking lot, but just before they can get inside, a little chick with yellow hair shows up calling our guy an old man. Kafka flies into a rage, arguing how a 32-year-old like him cannot be an old man. She gets straight to the point and asks him to move his monster sweeper truck because she wants to park her car there. When Kafka refuses, saying there are plenty of other empty spots, the girl says 5 is her lucky number. When Kafka still refuses, she uses the strength from her expensive suit to lift his truck and toss it aside. Reno asks who she is and the girl flexes, saying she is Kikoru Shinomiya and her hobby is killing kaiju. Kikoru then approaches our guy and tells him he smells like kaiju. After hearing that, our guy feels pretty pissed, but Reno steps in and says they handled the kaiju trash, which makes her even more curious about why they show up. Her attention shifts instantly when Kafka casually lifts his truck, and she assumes he must have a suit too. He turns around and introduces himself as her daddy, telling her to remember the name. His smug frown disappears the moment her ninja butler parks in the spot, and then she acknowledges Kafka and challenges him to impress her in the test. While she walks away with her men in black, he gets hyped up, but Reno asks why he decides to use his power in public, though Kafka brags that he hides his claws pretty well. After that, they walk toward the venue, and our main guy promises not to mess up this final shot to join Mina, but the hype dies quickly when he pants like a dog with asthma, even though he trains every day. The first part of the test checks fitness, followed by the aptitude test that Reno says depends entirely on genetics, so his best shot is a big score in the fitness part. Kafka soon figures out that all this training means nothing because he now moves like a fat and crusty 30-year-old, but he refuses to cheat with his powers and lands at 6 from the bottom. Kokoro throws her rank sheet at him and smugly roasts the old man so hard he wishes he could vanish and rot in a hole forever. Reno feels shocked that Kafka avoids using powers even once, so Kafka explains that it feels unfair to others and then rants about how he could destroy everyone if he uses just 1% of his true power. Meanwhile, Soshiro shows a list of the candidates, and as soon as Mina spots her childhood crush, she asks him to give his thoughts. He says that of all of them, the ones who catch his snake eyes are Izumo Haruchi, who destroys everyone in university, then Haru, who has wild teeth and serious muscle, and finally Kaguraji, who flipped off the military to join the Kaiju Defense Force. Last on his list is the 16-year-old prodigy straight out of California from Freedom Land who skipped grade with her insane talent, Shinomiya Keikoru. While she walks around looking all smug, Haru swears he's gonna crush her completely while Izumo and Kaguraji decide to wait and see what she brings to the table. Rito points out that the competition looks real tough, and when Keikoru asks if he now sees her greatness, he holds onto her in amazement until her guards wreck him for diddling a pure girl with those old man hands. The others look at him with full disgust while Keikoru smugly says he keeps losing more aura points every time they meet. After that, he starts to wonder how he should get one up on her, so Reno tells him he has a shot since he knows so much about Kaiju from his past, and that kind of knowledge holds the same weight as actually killing Kaiju, which also explains why he joined the disposal squad. Later, in front of a massive gate, Captain Soshiro introduces himself and says the next part happens inside, then opens the doors to reveal Kaiju waiting for them, since they will be hunting those for the test. A Kaiju charges at them full speed, and Kafka almost gets a heart attack, collapsing onto his dump truck while everyone else stays calm. Marking the third time, Kakoro laughs at his clown self. Captain Soshiro explains that all of them receive Izumo battle suits crafted from Kaiju muscle fibers, with which Reno immediately forms a good synergy. Since it is the top weapon humans use to fight Kaiju, the Defense Corps first checks each person's raw potential. Reno pulls a decent 8%, while Izumo and the others all cross 10%, which stuns Lab Lady Okanoji because it is rare to see more than one person a year break that mark. Her jaw crashes to the floor when she sees Keikoru sitting way above everyone else with a crazy 46% unleashed potential, already putting her near platoon leader rank. That gives Reno a rough case of FOMO, but Captain Soshiro tells him 8% is actually solid for a first-timer and jokes that at least he is not at 0, then laughs harder saying nobody has ever had 0. Hearing that, the commander starts laughing like crazy while Kafka tries to squeeze out some potential without causing an accident in his pants. Kafka tries to figure out the secret behind unlocking his potential while Keikoru fumes hard, watching him suck like a dad joke after showing off in the parking lot. Once everyone gets into their suits, Captain Budget Orochimaru announces that their test starts now. He explains there are 36 small-time kaiju and one big Hanju boss hiding inside the city, and they are all equipped with anti-kaiju rifles to hunt them. While drones follow each candidate and activate a defense shield, the second things get too wild, which also means an instant fail. After that, the round kicks off and Keikoru blasts past everyone like she owns the place, then starts stacking up kills like it is no big deal just to flex on them. Meanwhile, Kafka starts freaking out over how they are supposed to compete, and just then Soshiro announces that Commander Mina came to watch them personally. Hearing that, Kafka locks in and realizes the drones probably look at more than kill counts, so he and Reno decide to play support instead. They see Izumo and other struggling NPCs fail to damage a thick-skinned Yojo, so Kafka jumps in and notices he has seen that one before, which helps him figure out why they carry grenades. He throws a stun bomb straight at its ugly face fearlessly, making it flinch hard since its hearing is 10 times stronger than its eyesight. After that, he points out that its belly has the weakest armor, letting Izumo and the others finish the job fast. Luhair says thanks for the save, and even Captain Soshiro shows a bit of interest, while Kafka's confidence hits new highs because of all the time he spends cleaning kaiju bodies inside and out. But reality comes swinging when a Yoju smacks his side and sends him flying into a building, triggering his suit alarms, so Soshiro tells Okanoji to hit that shield button at any moment. As the Yoju gets closer, Kafka knows using the shield means a failure, so he tries with everything he has not to mess up in front of Mina, and right before the kaiju chomps him down, it suddenly turns into Swiss cheese. Standing on top of it, Keikoru says again how disappointed she feels about his useless self and tells him to stay down in the dirt while she handles the rest like a queen. That tiny spark of motivation seems to push Kafka forward, but Reno notices that his leg looks totally wrecked, and right then, Captain Soshiro steps in to say his body has major damage with even some vital organs affected, which throws Kafka into a pit of self-hate over his 0% potential being the only thing stopping him from standing beside his dream girl. He ignores Soshiro's warning and decides only he gets to say when to quit, so he rises on that broken leg powered by nothing but raw willpower, testosterone, and straight-up brute force. His potential climbs by 0.1% while he stares Mina right in the eye and swears to never throw in the towel. Everyone watches him frozen as he acts like everything feels totally fine. Soshiro says he will press the shield trigger if it gets risky, which Kafka agrees with before he coughs up blood and tells Reno to go on without him. But his bro reaches out because they agree to face it all as a team. While the control room loses it laughing, the two idiots combo up with a piggyback move that feels insanely cringe but lets Kafka make big brain calls while Reno executes them with his power suit. Kafka then tells him to tail Kikoru, who's out there racking up scores like she's Ronaldo against an old man with a stroke. The blonde keeps hopping from Yoju to Yoju and destroys them all like a boss before putting a bullet right through the main kaiju's ugly head and ending it clean. As the Hanju collapses, the lab lady quickly announces that the boss is down and the test now ends, so everyone should head out. Kafka feels like he's about to explode since she finished too fast and a whole combo meant nothing. While Okanoji asks the captain for the signal, he tells Commander Mina that Kikoru is proving her worth big time, and thanks to her, barely anyone got seriously hurt or unsubscribed from life. Back on the battlefield, Kikoru looks up at the sky and wonders if she's perfect enough for her daddy to notice, and turns around to rub it in Kafka's face, but she suddenly senses something weird behind her and blood instantly shoots from her chest. Meanwhile, Kafka catches his breath and tells Reno how much of a monster Kikoru is until he panics because the dead kaiju start moving again. At the same time, Kikoru seems to have blocked the hit with her suit and asks the humanoid what it is, leaving it surprised to see her alive and somehow healed. As it pets the Hanju, she takes aim, but the creepy thing tells her not to bite off more than she can chew and shoots enough bullets to take down a whole school and shuts her down. Chaos breaks out in the control room about her status and everyone freaks out as the kaiju comes back to life, now at the crazy magnitude of 6. Since no single officer can handle that mess, Mina orders all shields to be turned on and gets ready to head out with Soshiro. On the other hand, Kikoru refuses to back off like a scared kid because no one dies while she's around. She screams she is the perfect slayer until a Hanju pulls a Bruce Lee kick and knocks her into the ground. That triggers her childhood memories where her name always sat at the top, but unlike her friends who got love from their dads just for passing, hers was always gone and her butler said he would surely be proud. When she finally talks to him though, the man says it is expected of her to be the best and she should stop celebrating small wins and work harder to not take an L next time. Even with a busted arm, she keeps going through the pain thinking about her dad's wise words until her gun falls and the kaiju grows its weapons back to shoot her down with a laser. Commander Mina and Soshiro Naruto run at full speed to the spot, hoping they get there in time, but Kikoru gives up seeing the insane attack charge up in front of her. She says goodbye and tells her dad sorry for not being his perfect girl when the Hanju fires the blast, but then the last person she expects shows up with a stupid grin. She sits there like a rag doll watching him go full transformation mode and look cool as hell. Meanwhile, the others run for safety, and Reno helps out where he can till someone warns them not to go near Kikoru's fight, so he turns to his senpai who is already gone. He is shocked at first, but then realizes it's only natural that he transformed and went to save her. On the flip side, Kikoru asks Kafka what he even is, so he gets on his knees and begs her to keep his secret, but says first he has a naughty kaiju to take out. Back in the control room, Okanoji alerts the commander that there is now a kaiju with a level 9 signal, which the captain finds hard to believe because that would make it the strongest in history. Just then, Kafka goes full Saitama and charges up because he plans to end it with one punch. With just one punch, he eviscerates the entire soul out of that kaiju like a boss, and then bathes in the blood of his enemy as Kikoru stares in shock. Kikoru wonders if he is just some senile old man as he cleanly slices up a Yoju creeping behind her and tells her she will be just fine with the warmest grin on his face, something her daddy never showed her. While he scolds her about taking risks, Reno arrives and says the same thing to him, and as the two bicker like a couple, she collapses face first on the ground. A few hours later, Captain Soshiro and Mina reach the location and feel confused about what could cause such chaos while Okanoji reports that the last 3 candidates also made it out alive. Soshiro says he doubts even Kikoru can do that and points out that the damage looks a lot like the scene from 3 months ago. Later, Kafka lies wrapped up in the hospital and feels pissed that Kikoru gets the best treatment while he only gets patched up. Still, seeing all these legends around reminds him that there is always someone better than him out there, but he claims that only fires him up more, unaware that Mina stands outside hearing every word. She then enters and thanks him for carrying Kikoru before dipping out fast, while Kafka holds back from saying her name until he earns a place by her side. Meanwhile, in the ICU, Kikoru feels uneasy about her dad and jumps up thinking she sees his shadow. Captain Soshiro thanks her for saving lives, which makes her think of Kafka. Still, when he asks if she didn't do it, she admits she did. On the flip side, the humanoid Kaiju is surprised hearing there were no deaths after reviving the Hanju and guesses the so-called captains on the news must be pretty strong, and then shows interest in the mentioned Kaiju number 8. It then gets a call, so it slowly morphs into a man and tells the team he's late because of some really spicy Taco Bell. As the men walk away with it, the thing almost fumbles the transformation, but the men are none the wiser. While Kafka and Reno keep arguing over their usual nonsense, their supervisor walks in holding the envelopes with their results. Both our guys sit at the table staring at the envelopes that hold the weight of their futures, and while Kafka knows this is his final shot, he quietly wonders if this path will finally lead him back to his childhood crush as he opens the envelope and finds himself frozen with his mouth wide open in disbelief at what he sees inside. Later at the headquarters, all the new recruits gather for their entrance ceremony, bracing themselves for the usual boring speeches. And as they glance around at each other's faces, nothing really stands out since most of them were already expected to be selected from the start. Kikoru makes her entrance and is asked to take the oath on behalf of the batch, being the top student, while Izumo and Kaguraji seem locked in a rivalry that's clearly just getting started. Around the same time, Iharu bumps into our junior and the two share quick introductions without much fuss. Before long, Captain Mina arrives and heads straight to the stage to begin the induction, calling Kikoru up to speak on behalf of the recruits as she steps forward and delivers the oath confidently. Mina thanks the yellow-haired ponytail for her efforts during the exam and mentions that the reason no lives were lost was because of her, though her eyes quietly begin scanning the crowd with a heavy expression, searching for Kafka, knowing deep down that the real credit belongs to him. As she clenches her teeth, clearly ready to demand answers about his creepy transformation, Kafka casually strolls in late, and the second he does, Kikoru's face lights up bright red, while everyone's attention turns straight to him. As the story winds back a little, Kafka's fate hangs in the balance as the selection board reviews his results, discovering that not only did he score the lowest in the fitness exam, but somehow managed to land a perfect 0 on the aptitude test. And just when the panel is about to dismiss his application entirely, Captain Shoshiro steps in and decides to vouch for him, arguing that while the guy might be a completely average idiot, he still managed to identify enemy weak points, support his teammates, and most importantly, made him laugh a lot, which, in his opinion, counted for something. Okanoji immediately protests the ridiculous reason for hiring someone, prompting the vice captain to compromise by taking Kafka in as a cadet instead of an officer and deciding to personally train him a bit more. Back in the present, Mina announces that Kafka has been accepted as a cadet and that this is the reason she had him sit out the induction ceremony, which causes a wave of quiet relief among many of the new recruits who seem glad to hear he is still around. Soon after, the vice captain turns to the commander and invites her to deliver her speech. Hearing the captain's speech fills Kafka with so much emotion that he ends up shouting her first name across the ceremony hall, boldly declaring that he will soon stand by her side, leaving everyone around stunned and whispering in confusion about why a newbie is casually calling the captain by her first name. While the words clearly strike a chord with his childhood crush, she keeps her composure and upholds protocol by ordering him to do 100 push-ups as punishment for disrespecting a senior officer. As Kafka panics over the sudden punishment, the vice captain bursts into laughter and teases Mina for going easy on the guy, but instead of replying, she simply walks away with a faint smile on her face. Okanoji grumbles about how Kafka just arrived and has already turned into the squad's comic relief, but Soshiro calmly responds that it's exactly the kind of energy their team needs, since things can get a little too grim sometimes. However, beneath that lighthearted excuse lies the real reason Soshiro brought Kafka in, which goes back to the time they received a 9.8 fortitude kaiju signal and someone's vitals vanished at the exact moment, making him suspicious that Kafka might be something far more unusual than he appears, and so he decides to keep him close and observe. Meanwhile, Kafka barely finishes his push-ups and collapses to the ground, only to be approached by Kikoru, who tells him they need to talk in private. Iharu, ever the clown, blurts out if this is a love confession and causes a minor scene, but Kikoru simply drags Kafka to a nearby restaurant to get the answers she's looking for. There she listens in disbelief as Kafka confesses that he ate a kaiju and turned into one, prompting her to mock him for having an appetite strong enough to down a monster, though Kafka quickly defends himself, saying he never meant to eat it in the first place. When he wonders aloud if he should report himself to the defense force and ask for help, Kikoru firmly shuts down the idea and explains that if they ever find out, they will turn him into a lab rat and subject him to all sorts of horrifying tests. going on to explain that when a kaiju is strong enough to be given a number, its remains are used to craft weapons. The horror of it all finally overwhelms Kafka, who leaps at her in desperation, begging her to keep his secret, and after a moment of thought, the stern girl agrees but makes one thing clear, that if he ever hurts anyone, she'll personally make sure he's taken down. The next day during the fire training exercise, Reno takes the lead and manages to set a new personal best with his unleashed potential now reaching 18%. Iharu watches closely and starts to worry that Reno might have finally caught up to him, but his nerves settle once he sees that his own combat power still ranks slightly higher. As the others take their turns, it becomes clear that everyone has made some kind of progress. Even Kafka, after all his struggles, achieves a new personal record as his unleashed power finally climbs to 1, which sends him sprinting toward Kikoru in pure excitement. However, the moment is short-lived as the vice captain shuts him down right away, warning that if his numbers stay this low, he will be kicked out before long. Without missing a beat, Soshiro calls for everyone to run 10 laps as part of their routine, and when the group groans in protest, he raises it to 15 without blinking. After wrapping up their intense training for the day, the squad heads straight into a hot bath, hoping to soothe their aching muscles and relax a little. As expected, the moment they settle in, the place erupts into chaos with everyone getting loud and playful, each one trying to squeeze in some fun before the day ends. As things start to settle down a little, the guys shift from splashing around to talking about why they chose to join the defense force. One says he owed his life to the commander who once saved him, while another admits he fell for her strength and grace the moment he saw her in a poster. When the spotlight lands on Kafka, he hesitates but ends up letting it slip that he and the captain go way back as childhood friends, and that it all began with a promise they made back then. Realizing what he just revealed, Kafka panics and tries to slip away unnoticed. But the rest of the guys pounce on him like a pack of zombies, desperate to get every juicy detail out of him. Later, when the girls step out of their bath, they're met with a bizarre sight of all the guys passed out on the ground, barely clinging to consciousness with towels draped over them while Reno does his best to cool them off. Turns out the brilliant idea of soaking in the hot bath for way too long backfired, leaving the whole squad completely drained and sprawled out like overcooked noodles. Days pass by as the entire platoon endures tough and grueling training every single day. They push through all kinds of exercises while still finding time to have fun in between. One night after everyone has gone to bed, Kafka stays in the library burning the midnight oil. Soshiro appears and asks if all this effort is for the captain. Kafka zones out, wondering how he found out, and the vice captain explains that he overheard him talking in the bath, reminding him that every word spoken in this dorm is recorded. On top of that, he suspects Kafka is aiming for his vice captain position and warns him that he will never lose his place next to the captain. As Soshiro turns to leave, the alarm sounds and he tells Kafka to get ready because it is already time for his first mission. At the operations room, Commander Mina asks the lab lady for an update while drones fly around urging citizens to evacuate from the disaster. Okanoji explains that the Hanju already bursts out from underground and charges its way, leaving a swarm of Yoju babies behind it. Knowing the only option is to wipe it out completely, the red-haired lady Nakanashima suggests luring it to Sector Bravo and finishing it there. Commander Mina hears that and says she'll take the shot on the big Hanju, tells the others to handle the cleanup, and wishes everyone good luck. Out on the road, truckloads of recruits roll out locked and loaded for their first mission ever, and Kakoru watches Kafka like she still can't believe a man that useless turns out to be Kaiju number 8. Later, Kafka gets into position as all the recruits quietly watch the massive beast barreling toward them. Captain Soshiro tells them the real problem is that it cranks out babies faster than Elan's Dogecoin, so their job is to make sure none of those critters cross the checkpoint. In the end, he makes it clear that senior officers are already stationed ahead, which means the recruits are the final line of defense. After checking that no one has questions, he tells them to get out there and prove themselves. Sometime later, Okanoji mentions that Commander Mina needs 8 minutes to reach her camping spot. After hearing that, Kafka tells Reno he's set on proving himself this time since he knows he won't get another chance if he gets fired in 3 months, and even though his legs are shaking, he admits he's honestly excited. Right after that, the critters start crawling out of their broods, so the recruits leap off the roof, while Kafka climbs down like some knockoff Peter Parker. A chopper finally drops the commander at her sniping spot, so Okanoji tells everyone to lure the Hanju into her line of fire, and the army starts blasting it with missiles to pull its focus. From a distance, Captain Soshiro tells the recruits to stay sharp, and Kafka answers with his 1% unleashed combat power, though the first Yoju smacks him straight into the trash. A senior then starts clowning the recruits, which ticks Kikoru off, so after he tells them to go hide home and suck her thumb, she gives a smug reply and then wipes out the entire horde by herself. While everyone watches her in shock as a single thumbs up from Daddy Kafka makes her blush so hard her suit tells her to calm down. Meanwhile, Iharu pops in and lands the final shots on a creeper the others helped weaken, then starts bragging about it to Reno, who one-shots the same kind by himself and humbles the redhead with his big brain move, thinking he still has a long way to go if he wants to stop his senpai from transforming. At the same time, Kaguraji and Izumo wipe out the critters and leave their seniors so embarrassed that they start whining to the platoon leader. She says she's honestly surprised to see how hot the newbies this year are as well, and then tells them how Captain Soshiro mentioned that this year's recruits are just built different with their raw potential and constant urge to outdo each other. Hearing the lab lady report that everything's going smoothly across the board, Kaka feels both relieved and annoyed that he's still completely useless, but then he remembers his senior's advice to stay safe and lean into his strengths. So he shocks everyone by digging through the mushroom monster's body and cutting deeper to find the core, only to realize it's not in the usual spot. Right after, he notices something sketchy and reports to Captain Soshiro that the weak point is on the side, but also points out they got balls, meaning if they don't destroy everyone, many more monsters will spawn. Impressed by the info, Soshiro gives him a pat and tells Okonoji to spread the word fast. Feeling proud of his contribution, Kaka rushes off to make himself even more useful and earn a spot next to Mina. But just as he gets in the zone, a massive explosion cuts his thoughts short. The big boss finally reaches the right spot, so the military bombs it while foot soldiers lay cover fire to hold it down. From a rooftop, the commander sets up her big black blaster and after clearance recalls Kaka's promise to be a cooler soldier, deciding to show off her aura. As the gun charges and she locks in, Soshiro tells Kafka to stay sharp while the glowing missile rips through the oversized fungus, leaving it full of holes. Kaka's eyes nearly pop out when she fires a second shot to finish it off, then lands a third just to be sure. Everyone in the control room celebrates, but when she asks for a fourth clearance and Okonoji talks back, she reminds him it's not a request. Kaka is just as blown away by Mina's hip vibes, so Soshiro asks if he really thinks he's worthy of standing by her, to which he smugly asks why Temu Orochimaru thinks he even comes close. Soshiro admits he isn't as good as her and says that while she's great at blasting the big ones, he proves there's pretty much no one deadlier than him at handling medium to small targets as he slices up the creeper, ambushing him like sushi. Kafka gets shocked, not even seeing his katana, as the captain says he comes from a family of samurai, then cuts the talk short, saying now that the mother's dead, it's time for the babies to swarm in. The army of baby mushroom monsters rolls out endlessly like a clown car, so Soshiro tells the newbies it's their time to shine and take out the trash, which slightly intimidates Izumo. Seeing them wimp out, the seniors start trash-talking, so Nakanoshima jumps in and sparks a little fire under the top two recruits who head out even as Lab Lady notes they're nearly out of stamina and running on fumes, which is exactly what Soshiro thinks brings out those fit to be captains. Though Kakoru is the only worthy one so far, he sees Reno as a strong runner-up and Iharu notices it too. With that, the two take off to hunt monsters, but on the way they spot a man in a cleanup crew uniform. And when Iharu asks why he didn't evacuate, the man starts rambling about his scheme getting ruined and wonders if someone on the defense team has deep kaiju knowledge, before turning around and asking if the boys know anything about it with fungus all over his face. A little farther away, Kafka and Reno's old co-workers from the cleaning company are huddled around a telescope, trying to catch a glimpse of their former teammates. The chaos on the battlefield makes it clear why every cleanup company from Tokyo and Kanagawa has been summoned. Their supervisor arrives and asks about the new recruit, and Takuda casually jokes that the guy must have locked himself in the bathroom again. Meanwhile, that same new recruit, who is actually the creepy humanoid kaiju in disguise, is now standing right in front of Iharu and Reno. Annoyed by their presence, he suddenly tries to shoot Iharu in the heart but narrowly misses. Iharu collapses, bleeding heavily and screaming in pain, and Reno quickly tells him to use his suit to stop the bleeding. Just then, the monster reveals its true form, the same one that had previously taken down Kakoru. Reno scrambles to contact headquarters for backup, only to realize that the creature has already cut off all signals in the area. After getting hit hard twice, Reno recalls Kakoru's warning and focuses on the monster's finger movements, managing to dodge the next attack just in time. As things spiral out of control, he somehow convinces Iharu to retreat and bring help. Reno knows he cannot win this fight, but thinking about his duty as a defense officer, he charges straight at the kaiju with everything he has, determined to buy Iharu enough time to escape. As Iharu tries to make a run for it, he stumbles and falls, frustration bubbling up as he realizes that Reno seems to be surpassing him while he remains stuck at just 20% of his unleashed potential. Fueled by this feeling, he charges back into the fray and saves Reno at the last second, right before the humanoid kaiju can blast him away. When Reno protests, Iharu snaps back that this time it will be he who saves Reno, not the other way around. reminding him that without his help earlier, he would already be dead. Sensing their plan to get Iharu out of the area, the kaiju declares that no one escapes from his zone, shutting down their last hope of fleeing. Realizing they are trapped, Reno and Iharu decide to fight together and bring down the monstrous threat. The kaiju fires another shot at Iharu, but this time Iharu has caught on to his attack pattern and avoids it. Seizing the opening, Reno unleashes more of his power than ever before, pushing to break past his own limits and take the shot. As the smoke clears, what stands before them is a towering wall of dead kaiju bodies. But before they can catch their breath, the humanoid freak bursts out from one of the corpses and shoots Reno at close range, delivering a brutal blow that leaves him badly injured, possibly beyond recovery. In the meantime, the vice captain receives word that both Iharu and Reno have gone missing, and that even their vitals are no longer showing on the radar. Kafka immediately grows tense, worry spreading across his face as the weight of the news sinks in. Just then, Kakoru arrives and confirms what he had feared all along: the dangerous humanoid kaiju has appeared. Back on the other side, Reno collapses with his entire body burning in pain. He tries to stop the bleeding and pushes himself up, only for the humanoid freak to lunge at him again. Just in time, Iharu intervenes, diverting the monster's attention. Shouting for help, he calls out for someone to save his friend Reno. And just before both of them can meet their end, Kaiju number 8 crashes into the scene, punching the freak so hard that it splits his head from his body. Seeing Kafka in his kaiju form, Reno grows gloomy, frustrated that despite everything, he couldn't prevent this from happening. Kafka holds his friend and stands tall, while Iharu freezes in fear at the sight of yet another humanoid kaiju. Meanwhile, the freak regenerates and gets back on his feet, realizing that this is Kaiju number 8. Kafka quickly hands Reno over to security and charges at the enemy. The bad kaiju questions why Kafka is attacking him when they should be on the same side, then launches an all-out assault, revealing that he had been going easy on Reno and Iharu the whole time. When Kafka sees the same attacking tentacles that were used on Reno, he snaps. With controlled fury, he wipes out the monster's attacks, and even a wall of kaiju bodies fails to stop him. Kafka keeps pressing forward and finally unleashes a massive attack that sends the enemy flying with its core now fully exposed. Just as he is about to finish the job and erase the kaiju for good, 2 officers arrive at the worst moment and ruin everything by alerting the entire team about Kaiju number 8's presence. They explain that the humanoid kaiju matches the description of the missing Kaiju number 8, which instantly alerts the vice captain. Without wasting time, he commands a dispatch unit to be sent immediately. All the chaos gives the humanoid freak enough room to regenerate, and before leaving, it throws out a warning that it now knows everything about Kafka and defeating him will be easier the next time they cross paths. As it attacks the humans while making its escape, Kafka steps in and takes the hit himself. Though frustrated that the kaiju managed to flee, he finds some relief in knowing that at least his friends are safe. While slipping away through a narrow alley, Kafka suddenly senses someone behind him. Turning around, he sees the vice captain, who instantly recognizes him as Kaiju number 8. The vice captain informs the team that he has engaged the target and requests that the limiter on his suit be lifted. His unleashed potential climbs to a staggering 92% as he prepares to neutralize the humanoid kaiju standing right in front of him. All warmed up, Captain Soshiro gets ready to strike while Kafka tries to think of an escape until a slash suddenly appears on his shoulder, making it clear he's in serious danger. Soshiro sends him flying and goes full sword ninjutsu at supersonic speed, slowly but surely slicing through Kafka's rock-solid shell with moves Kafka didn't think even Kakoru could pull off. After that, another stab to the chest fully exposes his core, but his insane regeneration keeps him alive. Kafka tries to make a break for it, but the samurai goes full Levite, and watching him dodge his attacks at lightning speed. Soshiro figures he's at least a magnitude 8, which makes him a great kaiju. With that, he charges his blades and launches an invisible double slice that cuts through Kafka's leg like butter, then follows with his real strike aimed at the core, which Kafka catches using his side teeth before charging an ultimate, only to blast it on Soshiro's katana, leaving the captain untouched. Feeling let down, he reports Kaiju number 8 escaped, which makes Kakoru wonder if such a monster is worth trusting, though her face lights up when she spots his wrinkly old face. After that, she sharply reminds him he's just an old fart with arthritis and has no business trying to fight the captain. Meanwhile, the man in question stays quiet until Commander Mina asks for his thoughts on number 8. He says it's clearly on the same level as the great kaiju from 5 years ago and believes number 9 is likely just as dangerous, though what really catches his interest is how it attacked his weapon instead of him and fought like a human. Right then, one of the senior soldiers reports that the same humanoid from the test reappeared, only this time it's wearing human skin, which leaves everyone stunned. The heavily wounded humanoid then stops a car and hijacks it GTA style after eating the owner to heal itself, wondering how it should go about taking down number 8 as it drives into the sunset. The next day, Reno wakes up in the hospital and feels relieved to see his senpai alive, then thanks Kafka for saving him, not realizing Iharu is in the bed right next to him. Iharu drops compliment after compliment about number 8's power and mad aura, and Kafka takes it all in with a big smile. That night, a party celebrates Reno and Haru getting discharged, and when Kafka calls room service, Izumo's army of servants shows up with a surprise gourmet feast. Kakoru explains it's because he's a rich boy heir to Izumo Technologies, which rakes in billions every year selling to the Defense Corps and even makes more than her family. She then smugly admits she asked him to arrange the party knowing the food would fire. After that, the captain raises a toast to everyone's first successful mission while Reno watches the wholesome vibes quickly spiral into absolute chaos as everyone starts trash-talking the person next to them, shocked to see even Kafka jumping in without hesitation. The captain explains that there is a tradition to roast each other's messed-ups after battle to help others work on fixing their flaws the next time. Later, the captain shuts down the madness to make a big announcement where he reveals that thanks to his outstanding contributions in battle, Kafka is now promoted to a real officer and officially welcomed to the team as one of their own. Everyone bursts with happiness, and even a usually cold Kaguraji looks genuinely glad since the old man's help during the mission kept the casualty count at 0. The very next day, Mina personally places a badge on Kafka's coat, welcomes him again with authority, and tells him not to get cocky because he's still far from being worthy of standing beside her on the field. That makes him happy because she remembers their old promise. She then adds with confidence that Soshiro was the one who recommended him, so he better step up and not let the man down. That night, Kafka decides to call it a day in the library, but on his way out, he suddenly notices a light still on. Inside the training room, he watches Captain Soshiro pose with his jacked muscles and then perfectly replicate his fight with him down to every breath, this time slaying his imaginary kaiju number 8 dummy not once but 2 times in a row, making Kafka nearly pee his pants as his knees give out. When he asks what the man's training on, and the captain replies he's working on a one-shot technique made specifically for hunting number 8 and confesses he's annoyed he didn't go all out from the start or use the 6th technique that would have torn number 8's core to absolute shreds. He goes on saying there's no one except him who can take down a great kaiju like number 8, so in his eyes he's the only man for the job. Meanwhile, high above the clouds, a whole pack of monster birds led by a demonic-looking humanoid gets ready to attack the base. The vice captain sits quietly in the library, digging deeper into the case of kaiju number 8, puzzled by how its attacks is even more human than kaiju. His thoughts drift to the creepy humanoid freak who could shapeshift and blend in like one of them, and the more he thinks about it, the more uneasy he grows about what the future might hold between kaiju and humans. Meanwhile, our guy is chilling alone on a rooftop, thinking about the vice captain and how he can afford to let him down, when out of nowhere, a massive shower of shooting stars begins to rain from the sky. The shooting stars turn out to be kaiju, and in no time they swarm the entire base. To make things worse, each of them has a fortitude level above 6, and is classified as Hanju, making them far from ordinary threats. With the captain currently away, Soshiro steps up and orders everyone into position, realizing that the kaiju seem to be targeting the base directly this time. The fact that so many have shown up together, despite usually attacking alone, makes things suspicious. Watching the base go up in flames and spotting nearly a dozen wyvern-type kaiju flying overhead, Kafka quickly contacts the vice captain to report that something feels off. These monsters never attack as a group. The vice captain immediately understands what that means. Someone even stronger must be leading them this time. As Soshiro pushes forward, he soon comes face to face with the approaching leader. The new dragonic humanoid kaiju speaks in the human tongue, shocking everyone. It looks around and asks if the vice captain is the strongest one here, then calmly declares him as its target. Soshiro is immediately notified that this creature has a fortitude level of around 8.3, placing it in the Daikaiju class. Without hesitation, the vice captain hands over the responsibility of dealing with the other kaiju to his subordinates and prepares to face this new threat himself. The Daikaiju suddenly lunges forward and Soshiro barely manages to dodge his powerful blow. The beast roars out commands to the other kaiju, taking full control of the battlefield and then charges again with terrifying speed. One glance is enough for Soshiro to understand that a single direct hit could end it all for him. He tries slashing through the monster's skin only to realize just how impossibly tough it is. As the rest of the team engages the other kaiju, our guide quickly contacts them, pointing out that the monsters have thinner skin at the back and are most vulnerable there. The team tries to adjust their strategy, but the kaiju start coordinating with each other, making it difficult to get behind them. Just then, the blonde-haired prodigy arrives and reveals her brand new weapon, slicing through a kaiju with ease. A few days earlier, she had requested a custom weapon, something normally reserved for the captain, but the team made an exception and crafted a scythe tailored specifically for her combat style. Mina had personally handed it to her and formally announced her as a member of the main force, ranking her third in the platoon right after the vice captain. When Kikoro first laid eyes on the weapon, she scoffed at its appearance, calling it ugly and claiming it didn't suit her at all. Yet as she swung it with precision, she unleashed two devastating new attacks that tore through the enemy ranks with style. As the fight heats up, even Reno manages to hold his own, impressing Kikoro with his growth and grit as the two form an unexpectedly perfect duo on the battlefield. Meanwhile, on the other side, the vice captain begins to falter under the relentless pressure of the Daikaiju. He lures the Daikaiju through the third gate, the Daikaiju now fully acknowledging him as a worthy rival, growls that he will devour Soshiro to grow even stronger. With a devastating blow, the monster sends the vice captain flying, but Soshiro manages to slice off one of its limbs. Back on the other side, Kaka rushes in to save an officer from a sudden kaiju attack, and when it seems like he will not make it in time, he taps into a bit of his kaiju legs to reach her just in time, pulling the girl named Menes to safety. Menes asks if he has finally gotten the hang of his suit, and Kaka responds with a confident thumbs up. But before they can relax, another kaiju locks onto them. Fortunately, Kikoro leaps in and takes it down, shielding both of them. Just then, they receive word that the senior officers who are off duty have returned to the base to assist, instantly lifting everyone's spirits. Meanwhile, back at the Daikaiju front, the vice captain tells the Dragonoid Kaiju that it picked the wrong team to mess with. He locks the monster in a brutal clash, slicing through the gaps in its exoskeleton. Using this as a distraction, he tricks the Daikaiju into thinking he is targeting its weak spot, only to land his ultimate move with full force. For a moment, it looks like the battle is over, but the Daikaiju quickly regenerates, grinning as it claims to be enjoying the fight with its chosen rival. The vice captain pushes on, breaking through the beast's defenses and finally exposing its core, though he is surprised to see how small it is. Without wasting time, Soshiro unleashes his eightfold slasher in a final attempt to obliterate the creature. The team starts cheering, believing the threat has been neutralized, but Soshiro warns them that it is not over yet. Even Kafe, still in his human form, begins to sense the monster's presence somehow. As the vice captain watches, the kaiju swells and morphs into a massive new form, like one of those villains powering up in the Power Rangers show. Its fortitude shoots up to 9 as it lets out a deafening roar. The lab lady realizes it's way too much for Soshiro to handle alone, but the legend still goes back in and unleashes his third technique, slicing small cuts all over its massive body while smoothly dodging the demon's slow, heavy attacks, which impresses Okanoji. Still, he knows those slashes aren't enough, and just as he figures he needs to strike the core on its back, he coughs up blood as the suit warns him to cancel Maximum Unleash since it's now dangerously overheating. Even so, he keeps going and dodges the kamikaze bird bombs that make up a thick smoke screen, giving him the chance to sneak up and go for a hit on its back, or so he thinks, until dozens of eyes suddenly pop open and the beast lands a brutal counter that blasts him through walls like a cannonball, so hard his suit shuts down on impact and instantly recommends emergency medical treatment. Everyone in the control room thinks he's done for as Soshiro relives his childhood memory back when his father told him his genius with the blade came a century too late and that you should just give up. He then acts like everything is fine and dandy to everyone's shock before struggling to stand up like an obese American. Kaiju number 10 tears through buildings and gets closer, so Soshiro decides he'll fight till he drops. He drives his twin blades into it like Zoro on steroids, but the monster heals right up and laughs at his tiny little sword, which he already knows is weak since practically everyone in the family and the defense force told him his sword skills are hopeless compared to guns. But Commander Mina was different and said she actually liked how good he is with his little thing, because it's exactly what she'd need if they ever face a foe too small and agile for her to blast away. That one moment she trusted him to be her protector gives him new drive, so he channels his inner Tanjiro and unleashes the second, third, fourth, and sixth Hashina family hidden technique, though he then gets slapped and death gripped by the kaiju so hard it nearly squeezes the soul out of him. Seeing the captain on his way to heaven, Kaka completely loses it and apologizes to Reno as he begins to transform, but he's stopped midway by the commander's calm and reassuring voice, telling everyone to relax. So Soshiro gives kaiju number 10 a smug grin right before it gets nuked in the back. Whipping out her big black blaster, Mina fires another blast into its ugly screaming face but ends up missing, so she falls back as it launches the kamikaze birds straight at her camping spot. Okanoji reports the core is in its upper back, but the captain knows it's no joke trying to get the big rascal to expose his weak spot, so he runs out on fumes and makes deep cuts in its legs as a decoy despite Okanoji's warning, but the wounds disappear in an instant. Just as he starts to think it's meaningless, Kikoro pops up from behind him and barely makes a dent in the monster's solid shell, so the captain tells her to slice directly into the wounds he creates, dealing heavy critical damage. That single attack drives her suit into full overheat, but it's more than enough because Commander Mina blasts straight into its back and exposes the core. Seeing that, Soshiro orders all the soldiers to stop it from regenerating as he epically carves up its shell from head to toe, and Mina readies her next shot. He musters up as much willpower as humanly possible to hold out just long enough, slicing and dicing through it like an absolute boss until he ends up right in front of its gaping jaws, ready to return the favor. Unfortunately for the big red discount final boss, Mina unleashes 96 and blasts the so-called Great Kaiju straight to smithereens. Once it's all over, Kaka bursts into tears like he just binged your name on repeat as he sees Kikoru and his idols salute each other on a job well done, exactly like he always dreamed as a little boy. Reno tells him to quit crying like a preschooler and hypes him up by saying this is just the start for them. Meanwhile, Commander Mina stops Soshiro from going off again and orders him to finally get some rest. However, her tiger suddenly freaks out and they all turn to the horrifying abomination in the sky made from exploding kamikaze birds, which has an estimated explosive force equal to a literal nuclear bomb. As the recruits try firing at one, the shockwave from the blast makes it clear that it won't cut it, and number 10 lets out one last evil laugh, saying it looks like their fight ends in a draw. Mina realizes this could be the end, but they suddenly hear Reno yelling at Kaka to stop, and everyone watches in shock as the dude dashes like a black man at the Olympics and transforms right in front of them. Seeing him fully unleashed, Soshiro regrets how much he vibed with the guy and can't believe he liked him so much that he refused to connect the dots and accept that Kaka was number 8 all along. Meanwhile, Kaka recalls his promise to Soshiro and Kikoru. Knowing this could be the final moment they talk as actual friends, and then he remembers what he owes Reno and the love of his life. While everyone stands frozen in shock, he charges every last ounce of power into his legs, launches like a rocket, and punches the nuclear tumor with everything he's got, sending it flying into the stratosphere. Right after, Mina shouts for everyone to brace for impact, and Kafka shields her and the captain with all of his strength as if his life depended on it. As the dust settles, the two of them get up while Kafka loses all the power in his busted old arms and legs trying to get away, and Mina stays cold as ice, image up like a savage to keep up her commander image, and tells him he's officially under arrest. At the director's office, the team reviews the footage capturing Kafka's transformation. The deputy director questions how a Daikaiju-level monster managed to hide right under their noses for so long. One of the officials suggests alerting the media, but others quickly shut the idea down, arguing that it would be better to eliminate the creature quietly and turn it into a weapon. The director silences the room, calling the discussion pointless for now, and firmly orders them to retrieve the kaiju from the 3rd Division before making any further decisions. Meanwhile, back at the 3rd Division, our guy is restrained and seems to be napping despite everything going on around him. He opens his eyes, growing gloomy as he remembers Kikoru telling him the defense force might consider turning him into a weapon. Just then, Mina, the vice captain, and a few others arrive to escort him outside where a transport truck is waiting. Outside, everyone stands in a line. Kafka feels sad that he couldn't look his friend in the eye, wondering if Reno would be really mad. But as he steps into the truck, Reno rushes up to him, calling him senior, and telling him he has faith he will come back. Inside the truck, Kafka has some quiet time with Mina, who admits she was shocked to see him transform into a kaiju. She promises to gather footage and testimony to prove he still has his humanity and that no one here sees him as an enemy. Before she leaves, Kafka cries quietly, asking if he can still stand by her side, making her smile. As he leaves, the vice captain orders the platoon to salute. When the stern deputy director questions if he's saluting a kaiju, the vice captain simply replies that he is saluting his captain. As our guy is taken to the Ariake Maritime Base, he is locked behind the 31 gates. Several days pass at the 3rd Division, and the whole platoon worries about the fate of their comrade, reminding each other how he saved them so many times. Even the captain shares their concern and works hard to compile all the data she can to find a way to save him. While everyone is doing their best, the yellow-haired girl arrives at her father's office. She asks him to spare her friend and not eliminate him, arguing that he has saved her life. The director dismisses her, calling her a fool. Then he shows her an X-ray of Kafka, pointing out that what Kafka tried to pass off as a heart is actually the core of a kaiju. As she leaves, she tells her father that she still believes in him. Meanwhile, the scientists continue running tests on Kafka. Later in the captain's office, Mina gathers some of the new recruits and tells them they are going to be split up and reassigned to different bases. The guys protest, but it seems there is nothing they can do. Later, Izuma overhears Kagugari on a phone call asking someone to save Kafka. After the call, Kagugari sits beside Izumo and explains that he was talking to an old commander friend. He admits he knows personal favors probably won't work, but he is still trying his best. Just a while later, the director himself arrives at the place where Kafka is locked up. Kafka shouts at him that he's not a kaiju. The director orders the team to release the bindings, and when they protest, he points out that a kaiju of Kafka's power could easily break free if he wanted and is only sitting still because he chooses to cooperate. As Kafka is released, the director immediately unleashes his fire and goes all out attacking him, arguing that no human could withstand an assault like this. Then the director prepares his gear and nerve links with weapons created from Kaiju number 2. He demands that Kafka morph if he does not want to die in his human form. Kafka tries to keep the transformation minimal to prove his humanity, but the director pulls out his Kaiju arm, forcing him to transform even more. Kafka does his best to dodge the attacks but still gets hit repeatedly. Suddenly, Kafka's body starts reacting strangely as if it is attacking a Kaiju. The director keeps pressing the attack and finally forces Kafka to take his full Kaiju form. Unexpectedly, Kafka loses control over his body and leaps toward the director to attack him while Kikoru shouts at him to regain his senses. On the other hand, Ryuma starts going hard in the gym like David Goggins and pushes himself to get stronger as fast as possible so he can protect his senpai. Seeing his aura points go up by the second, Iharu decides to jump in too, and that's when their seniors show up and drop the news that Kafka's fate is being decided today, and they even summoned Commander Mina to give an official comment. Meanwhile, Kafka roars again, but this time director Shinomiya notices his attacks are way faster and more animalistic. Inside, Kafka keeps fighting for control as his body goes absolutely ham on the director so brutally that he'd be a cursed pancake without number 2's special shield. Shinomiya claps back with his gauntlet's explosive punch aimed square at Kafka's heart, but the core is nowhere to be seen. Instead, it floats behind him and regenerates into a full body that counters with a punch powerful enough to destroy the second barrier. The observers start to panic, but the old men stay pretty chill, since they expect any clash between two numbered kaiju to bring at least this much chaos. As Kikoru watches in awe, the wrinkly bald man finds it strange that her dad refuses to end the fight and suspects he might be testing how far Kafka can go, which makes Kikoru wonder if her dad is actually giving Kafka the chance she asked for. The two old men lock arms and director Shinomiya makes Kafka charge into the wall like a dumb bull, but he quickly regrets it when Kafka comes flying back and bashes his ribs in making even the bald men panic for the first time. Number 8 keeps growing stronger beyond what even the director can fully handle, while Kafka keeps struggling inside. The director puts his gauntlets into overdrive and throws out his strongest punches, but Kafka now powers through his shield like it's paper. Then he follows up with number 2's ultimate railgun attack that sends shock through Kafka's full body, but he recovers instantly and fires back a laser death ray of his own, making Kafka want to rip his hair out as it injures Kikoru's dad. Kafka then takes him in a death grip and smashes him into the wall. Just as it seems like he might end him, he turns and sees Kikoru's sad little face and refuses to let her watch him finish off her dad. But his body goes full savage and starts beating the director into the ground like a toy plushie against his will. Thinking about all the times Kafka was wholesome and real, she doesn't lose hope and yells at the old fart to get his act together. Hearing that, Kafka channels the power of anime and friendship to finally break his restraints a second before getting chomped in half by the parasite. As his body raises a final death blow on Kikoru's father, he feels himself drowning in the void when he suddenly sees a bright ray of hope and feels Mina grab his hand, promising she'll always be waiting. Her voice finally snaps him back into reality and his finisher lands, splattering blood everywhere to Kikoru and her father's complete shock, because he actually punches a hole into his own chest and proudly declares he's not a kaiju, he's Hibino Kafka. After he collapses, the 1st Division's captain Narumi puts his blade to Kafka's neck, but the director himself stops him and orders the medics to come and carry off number 8 before he bleeds out. After the director's physical examination wraps up, Commander Mina finally gets called in for her official comment as Kafka's superior, and they make sure to bring up her past with him while making it painfully clear that they've already made their decision. She's only there to give a report on what happened, meaning her opinion as a woman apparently holds no worth whatsoever. She claps back without hesitation that she doesn't care if they see Kafka as human or not and calmly reports his real contributions as an officer. First, she points out how he was more fragile than their ego during their first major mission, but his discovery of reproductive organs turned out to be a massive game-changer. Still, the biggest proof of his deep desire to protect humanity was how he threw away both his future and life in the fight against number 10, saving the entire 3rd Division from being completely wiped out. The geezers start yapping that he cheated using filthy kaiju powers and argue a newbie like him couldn't possibly know that much unless he was a dirty kaiju himself. But to their surprise, Mina admits as his unleashed potential is a zero-rounder than their bald, hairless heads and that he only passed under special conditions after failing the exam 12 times. But his dedication alone proves his worth, and he kept going till the bitter end, even after pulling an errand and turning into the very monster he swore to erase. Having heard her opinion, director Shinomiya tells her to leave, and after she exits, all the geezers turn to him and ask for the green flag to approve Kikoru's execution. As he quietly utters his decision with a regretful look in his eyes, Kaka remembers the time when he was helpless and swore to Mina that he'd take revenge on the kaiju. And now it's too late when he has the power. Later, he opens his eyes in the hospital and nearly dies of a heart attack after seeing Kikoru's father beside him, and then thanks the heavens he doesn't have to face her at his funeral. Noticing his confusion, the director explains he'd be dead for sure if he didn't have a core where his heart used to be, and adds that the council has officially declared him a kaiju. He objected to using Kafka as weapon materials and got a ton of backlash when he convinced the geezers that keeping him controlled is far more useful now that the Defense Corps is facing its strongest threat ever. In the end, Kafka proudly declares he's still an officer and promises to prove he belongs in the Defense Corps. Seeing the message that he won't be executed, Mina actually smiles for the first time in forever. The news also spreads fast throughout the 3rd Division, and all of them celebrate gladly that their favorite old man is still kicking and alive. Meanwhile, back at Kaka's old workplace, his former buddies get their rears absolutely handed to them in chess by a mysterious guy named Number 9 who's been climbing the leaderboards recently. It's revealed that he's the humanoid kaiju who thinks he has humanity's intelligence figured out. He then casually mentions that he now has the full layout of the Defense Corps, and they're finally ready to execute their plan. At that moment, a shady figure steps forward and declares that it's time for the kaiju to take back the power of their fallen brethren.